Hi, my name is Mark McPherson. Let's spend a few minutes thinking about and talking about faith. I've come up with what I believe is a good working definition of faith, kind of a rule of thumb, so that whenever I confront a situation, I can immediately pull this to mind, and it helps me make at least intentional decisions that hopefully are consistent with what I believe. So I'm talking about making decisions on a daily basis that are consistent with what I believe. To me, and I'm an attorney that regularly works with defined terms, both in terms of choosing terms that need to be defined and coming up with the proper definition, a working definition of that term. So I have a lot of experience doing this, which is probably why I'm drawn to these types of activities. In one of my other videos, I defined love, and that definition is, I think, is to act in someone's best interests. And so if you haven't seen that video, go check it out. But this one I want to talk about the definition of faith. To me, faith means that rule of thumb definition for me is you do the right thing and let the chips fall where they may. Those are four critical components, kind of subparts of that definition. But faith is do the right thing and let the chips fall where they may. So let's walk through each of those components. We have to talk first probably about what faith isn't, because we misuse words so often in today's culture. So let's talk about what it isn't. Faith isn't knowledge. It's the first component that gets knocked out. If you know something, it's not faith. If you can foresee it, deduce it, use our experience with something else to come to a logical conclusion about it, that's probably not faith either. If you're at the roulette wheel and you have faith that the next round is going to come up red, that's not faith. That's an assessment of risk. And those are two, again, very different things. When I was growing up, and I've consistently heard, and probably the most common way to people try to define faith was to compare it to sitting down in a chair. Whereas we can think about that chair will hold me, doesn't mean anything until you actually try to sit down in the chair. The act of sitting in the chair is an exercise of faith. That's a very, in my opinion, extremely poor reflection of true faith, because again, with that chair, I have all kinds of experience with chairs, both good and bad. I can look at a chair and logically deduce whether it's will or will not support my weight. And there are all kinds of other things like context, where the chair is, that would give me clues as to whether or not that chair will or will not support me. I can see a chair for the first time and make all kinds of instant conclusions and deductions through the powers of logic based on my experience, and come up with a very firm knowledge that whether that chair will or won't support me. So by the time I'm sitting down in it, it's not really faith. It's my powers of logic. The other part about faith, if you really want to talk about faith, I think you have to choose let's choose something that is beyond our foreseeability, something we have no experience, so we can't use logic to make any kind of deductions on our own. You have to totally take somebody else's word for it. And the best thing that comes to mind is what happens when you die. Every single one of us is going to die. What happens when you die? And how does your faith in what that's going to be, your belief in that, affect your decisions today? Because those things are intricately combined. Intricately combined. Sometimes being from Tennessee is not the best thing. What you believe is going to happen afterwards is going to affect your faith. It's going to show up in how you act during your life. So let's break down that definition. We talked about action. It's more than simply thoughts. Something has to influence your action, because the action has to be do the right thing. Okay, the right thing to me comes from what you believe happens when you die. You can believe in the Book of Mormon, you can believe in Buddha, you can believe in the Quran, you can believe in the Bible, you can believe in a televangelist, you can believe in whatever version of God that you can create in your mind. There are literally millions of options. And we have the free will to choose from any of them. And we do. Sometimes we don't realize it. We don't understand that our actions are going to come about, are going to, influence what happens then, and what we believe about the future and what we believe about when we die is influencing what we do today. But it does. If you're the atheists who don't believe that anything happens after you die, for them doing the right thing is about their lifetime. But we all have a version of good, bad, right, and wrong. When you don't, we call them sociopaths and serial killers. Good and bad are common. They're universal. The question is, what's influencing your decision of good and bad, particularly in a particular situation, when it comes time to make a decision to take some kind of action? I believe in a God that's revealed in the Bible. So I'm going to make my decisions of what's the right thing based on my understanding of the Bible and my interpretation and application of the Bible to my life. That's me. But again, that's because I have faith in the God that's revealed in the Bible. I believe that when I die, I'm going to go before God, and He's going to say, I'm either going to go to heaven or I'm going to go to hell. Catholics believe in purgatory, heaven, and hell. Atheists don't believe in any of that stuff. Doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but in terms of the definition of faith, what you believe about eternity is how you believe today. And we can look at your actions today and determine what you really believe about when you die, regardless of what you say you believe. Actions are way louder than words when it comes to this sort of thing. Okay, so we've talked about doing, we've talked about the right thing. So let's talk about the word let. That word is critical to faith, and that's very important to me. Maybe this is just because of my experience, but I'm kind of one of those people that have a tendency to project or try to predict what is going to be the effect of my decision or my action, right? And so I'm going to say, well, here's what's going to happen. This is all the consequences. Okay, well, I can deal with these consequences. That's fine. But boy, these two, they're going to leave me pretty exposed and vulnerable. And I don't really like that. So I'm going to, that's fine with all that. But over here, I'm going to make some little corrections to those chips as they come down. And I'm going to fix them before they get there. Or I'm going to let them, as soon as they hit, I'm going to know that that's where they're going to hit. And I will take particular action to adjust them once they get there. That's not faith in God. That's faith in me. When I'm starting to arrange that more and more of my life, the more I do that, the more faith I am showing in myself, and that means the less I'm showing in somebody else. Faith is one of those things where you have 100% of faith at some point, at every point, in something or someone when it comes to eternity. What happens when you die? There's 100% of something going to happen when you die. The more, for me, the more that I do on my own, the more I take control of those chips, the more I'm having faith in me, the less I'm having faith in God that's revealed in the Bible. The more I let the chips fall where they may, the more faith I'm showing in the God that's revealed in the Bible. So my challenge in life is that as I live it, to work more and more to where I'm doing less arranging the chips and doing more letting the chips fall where they may. And so the chips falling where they may, those are the consequences. And that's really where faith to me, that's where the rubber hits the road. Are you going to show that you have faith in whatever you profess? Or are you going to hedge your bets? The more you hedge your bets, the more your actions aren't being consistent with your words, and the more you really don't have the faith that you may think that you do. So the questions I think all that leaves is, what do you believe? What do you really believe happens when you die? I mean, that's we all die. You got to have an answer. Not having an answer or not thinking about it is in itself an answer. Then you have made decisions about that, and there will be consequences one way or the other about that. Figure out what that is. Don't just walk through life mindlessly. What happens when you die? You don't have any experience with dying and figuring out what that is and then coming back. You don't have it. I don't know anybody that does. Nobody does. The only person that's professed to do that, and is Jesus Christ. So then when you're confronted with that, you have to figure out what to do with that. Do you accept what he said? Do you reject what he said? I mean, what was he? At some point you have to figure that out and address that. And I'll talk about that in a different video. But again, my definition of faith, I think, applies across spiritualities, religions, or lack thereof. Do the right thing. Let the chips fall where they may. That shows by your actions what it is you actually believe is going to happen when you die. Make those decisions deliberately and intentionally and consistently.